What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Bailey Canning. I'm an independent marketing strategist, and on today's video, I wanted to chronicle the reasons why I switched from WordPress, which is what I originally learned to build websites with, going back to an internship I landed at college at a really cool advertising agency, and then why I eventually switched several years later to using Webflow exclusively for all my web development projects as of this moment. Now, the reason why I'm making this video today is that if you're considering redesigning your company's website in the near future, then one, it's likely that it's already built on WordPress because WordPress powers roughly around 40 to 50% of the internet as of this moment. So it is basically the largest platform that websites are built on. But if you are, again, like I said, considering redesigning your website in the future, I think you've got a lot to gain by switching to Webflow. And of course, when you're redesigning the website, it makes perfect sense to consider moving platforms as of that time as well. I think it's just a much more modern solution that's going to be able to help your company leverage the website as a true online marketing machine far better in the future going forward. If you're interested in branding, web design, or digital marketing, then definitely subscribe to my channel because I'm putting out one video per week that'll help you drive more traffic to your website, increase the amount of leads it's generating, close more sales, and ultimately increase revenue. And quite honestly, who doesn't want that? Without further ado, let's just get into today's video. So when I first started learning how to design and develop websites, it was roughly 6 years ago, and I was a senior in college. I had landed a really awesome internship at a local digital marketing agency. I was working like 30 plus hours per week while going to school, more than full time, so I was taking more credit so that I could graduate early. But long story short, at the agency, they were using WordPress exclusively to manage probably anywhere between 20 to 30 client sites. And as an intern on the digital team, I was given the opportunity to work on real life client websites. And the CMS they were using was WordPress. So really, I did not have any choice but to learn on WordPress as I got into the industry. However, there is really a lot of great things to say about WordPress. And quite frankly, I would say that WordPress is still the second best CMS to use. However, there are a lot of drawbacks to using it. And quite frankly, it was built over 20 years ago. And I think at this point, the time is really showing. When I first started building websites with WordPress, this is in the days before page builders like Oxygen or like Bricks Builder or even like a tool like Elementor, where you had a lot more design freedom. Back then, it was much more about installing a theme on the website and then customizing that theme to match your brand. And then also, a lot of those themes, especially the ones we were using at the agency called WordPress Salient, allowed you to add a lot of really cool interactions and design effects with just the click of a button and editing the theme settings. You didn't need to necessarily know how to code from scratch those effects. Another thing I really love about WordPress, which ultimately I think is a double-edged sword, is the amount of customization you have available, and specifically the plugins that allow you to essentially access an entire app store to add new features and functionality to your website very easily. Now, ultimately, the comparison I keep coming back to with WordPress versus Webflow is that WordPress is very much like Android, where it's open source and decentralized and really revolves around the user having a lot of technical knowledge, whereas Webflow is much more the Apple model, where everything is, built from one centralized source, one company, and then really you don't have a lot of customization outside of what they allow you to do. However, Webflow has been around for nearly 10 years at this point, and it is a very full-fledged website builder. So essentially anything you could want to do with WordPress, you can also do with Webflow, either natively or leveraging a lot of no-code or low-code tools as well. While I loved using WordPress, I would say that the things that make WordPress great, the plugins, the customization ability, all the different configurations you can set a website up with WordPress, ultimately, I would say that is the downside, because for the vast majority of clients I'm working with who are professional service-based companies, so architects, engineers, lawyers, etc. Honestly, for those types of business websites, WordPress is just far more overkill, I would say, than what you really need. And all that extra technical customization and functionality that you can potentially tap into with WordPress, honestly, I would say on the vast majority of client websites, it was just not needed or necessary. But there is still so much technical setup you need to do with every single WordPress build that honestly, I would say building the same site in WordPress versus Webflow, the amount of work you need to do just setting up the admin type settings and all the SEO settings and the site speed settings and your cache plugin and all the different plugins that need individual setups, I would say you're probably adding on another 10 hours or so of admin type work to a project build. And then also, and this is the downside of all the customization and technical flexibility that WordPress gives you, oftentimes the amount of bugs or just amount of issues randomly that I would have to troubleshoot and go on forums and back when I was at the agency, ask coworkers to help me solve. Honestly, there are so many more bugs and technical issues you're likely to run in while building a site in WordPress, whether it's due to the WordPress site itself or like the hosting or the plugins. There are so many issues that you're probably going to have to spend an extra 10 hours developing just through those issues. Whereas with Webflow, honestly, there are very few bugs, if there are really ever any bugs. And I can also rest assured knowing that when I'm building with Webflow, if I do run into a bug, which again is very unlikely, there's actually a dedicated support team that I can contact and who can look at the build and troubleshoot from there. Whereas WordPress is open source, which yes, gives you much more flexibility and options, but there is no central backing of the WordPress.org software, meaning that ultimately, if you run into an issue, you need to contact your plugin theme author and hopefully they can help you, or maybe the page builder if that's where the issue lies, maybe they can help you, but there's no one centralized support system that you can reach out to, which is a huge downside. And secondly, as I'm talking about this, you might be a marketing director or you might be a business owner and you're not going to be the one developing and designing the site. You're going to be hiring and outsourcing that task. However, it's important for you to know this in the background because the person that you're going to be hiring is going to have to do this, and either it's going to take them much longer to develop the site in WordPress versus Webflow, and on top of the extra time it takes to deliver the project to you, they're going to have to bill all of that time to you. And ultimately, as I'll wrap up this video at the end here, I'll explain why, the ultimate story of why I eventually made the decision to switch full-time into Webflow versus WordPress. But long story short, it was taking more time to deliver projects in WordPress, and I was delivering worse design results, and I had to charge more money because it was all taking more time, and ultimately I did not feel comfortable taking longer to deliver an inferior project that costs more money when I could just be using Webflow and having a much better time in that. And some of the benefits I found since switching from Webflow full-time and probably building 10 plus sites in this time using Webflow exclusively. One, I can get projects done faster, anywhere between 10 to 20 hours faster, or roughly about 20% faster total. So obviously, the faster I can deliver a project to clients, the better for everybody. Secondly, as I've already talked about, there are far fewer bugs in my personal experience. And if I ever do run into any bugs, I can just contact Webflow support and they will be right on it. Another reason is the interactions and the effects and the animations that you're able to add to websites are simply top notch. And quite frankly, just there is no comparison in WordPress. If you're really going for high-end premium design and you have the budget for that, then Webflow is absolutely going to be the platform you want to use. And also, I think it goes without saying that anytime you look at those website awards sites, so like awards, for example, almost all the time, they are built in Webflow. Webflow has become the leading platform for designers who are looking to build websites themselves, or just brands that are looking to invest in a high-end premium designed website. Another thing is site speed, which has become increasingly important ever since the Core Web Vitals update that Google recently rolled out to its SEO algorithm, probably about 2 to 3 years ago at this point. And that is another reason why I started at that time to heavily look into transitioning to Webflow full-time. The amount of optimization it takes to get a WordPress site to load fast, even if you're on a really good hosting provider, takes, again, probably about 5 additional hours per project to get that right. However, with Webflow, AWS hosting, which is the best host on the market today, is built right in, and it has a global CDN. It probably takes me 20 to 30 minutes per Webflow build to optimize it for site speed, and the rest is just handled in Webflow because the code that it outputs looks like a human has wrote it. I also gotta say, and this is completely anecdotal, but in my experience building sites and then working with that same client on a marketing campaign, the marketing results we're able to get from an SEO campaign, from a paid traffic campaign, are just far better in my experience than when we were using WordPress. So I'm not exactly sure why that might be. Google is pretty CMS agnostic when it comes to ranking sites. I think, quite honestly, it's due to the fact that the technical infrastructure that the site is built upon has far cleaner code. And when it comes to technical SEO, that is a pretty significant ranking factor. And so in the grand scheme of things, all things being equal, Google is probably going to like your Webflow site with its clean code much better than your WordPress site. Also, definitely worth talking about the CMS here, or the content management system. So to leverage your website as a true online marketing machine, you're going to need to be really producing a lot of content. So blogs, videos, podcasts, etc. But a CMS can be much more than that as well. You can also use it to organize various data sets and then use that data throughout the website. So for example, common way to do this would be a team member section. So say you have 10 employees, everyone has a name, a photo, a bio, maybe some social links, etc. You can have that organized in the back end of your CMS and then display that visually with Webflow as you build out that content. And this is just much better if you're going to have that content on multiple pages and you only want to be able to edit it in one spot. This is also another reason why I switched from WordPress to Webflow, because in Webflow, you have to build the CMS from scratch. And the benefit of this is that the CMS you end up having is just much more tailored to the specific project and your company and your clients as well when I'm building in Webflow. So this basically gives the client a much higher brand experience in my estimation. And that's another reason why I ended up switching from WordPress to Webflow, is that ultimately I found that after handing off a website to a client in WordPress, they had a very hard time going into the admin dashboard and figuring out how to make basic updates to their website and being able to really leverage the website as a marketing tool to grow their business. Whereas in Webflow, it's very simple, it's very easy. I've never had a client have any technical issues being able to update the website, even though oftentimes before I show them how to do it, they are a little concerned about that. But then once they see the videos I put together on how to add new photos to Webflow, add new CMS items, add new text, change text, edit text, etc., honestly, at that time, they're really blown away about how easy it is to manage the website going forward. If you're considering a new website that is going to be transitioning from WordPress to Webflow, then definitely feel free to book a free strategy call with me to talk all about your project, because I would love to learn more about your company, more about the clients you serve, and more about your core service offerings, and then take all the information you give me and help you outline a digital marketing and website game plan to achieve your company's marketing and sales goal. If that sounds interesting to you, then definitely go to the description of this video where you can find a link to book a strategy call. I would say you've got nothing to lose, but a whole lot to gain. So again, link in the description if you want to learn more about that. All right, and now just to interject a personal story here. So my first Webflow build was for a architecture studio in San Diego, and this is a modern / minimalist architecture studio. So they really needed to have a high-end designed website, and this was probably like the first big project that I had landed in my career to date. And I really wanted to impress the client here because honestly, one of the project requirements was to have a website that featured super high-end design, because this architecture studio was relying on their design skills in the modern and minimalist architecture space to sell their clients. So obviously, if they had a poorly designed website, then that doesn't speak very well to the architecture design work they're able to offer their clients as well. So I knew something like WordPress probably wasn't going to be ideal because, like I said, we wanted to add a lot of interactive effects, we wanted to add some cool animations, and it just wasn't going to be possible with WordPress. So I built the site using Webflow. Honestly, it was a pretty big learning curve, and I didn't even have a component library like Rayloom to work with, so I had to build everything from scratch. But honestly, the website turned out great. At the agency I showed it at when I was working at the time, even though we were a WordPress agency, everyone was super impressed with how it looked. They really wanted to know, did you use WordPress to build that? How did you do that? And then I was like, no, it was actually built with Webflow. And so at that point, I had already seen the power of Webflow firsthand in a client project. And as I got more involved in my business, I recognized that, especially if you're going to be building a team, or you just want to have one simple interface to work from at all times, it really is not good for scalability or just for your own personal mental bandwidth to be jumping from different platforms and trying to figure out how different things work on each platform. Really, if I wanted to be able to provide the best results for my clients, I had to specialize in one platform. And then I would say the breaking point of this was when I was working on a large e-commerce project, had 2,000 or 3,000 projects, and then the rest of the site was pretty big as well, for a company that offers interior design services specifically to the salon industry. And in this project, this is really where the third-party nature of WordPress and the fact that you need to integrate with a host, it really came back to bite me in the you-know-what. Because long story short, when we went to go migrate the website, they had a awful, outdated host that essentially made it impossible to migrate the website. I spent probably 2 full business days trying to work with the support and trying to install a fresh new version of WordPress to import the website. And honestly, we couldn't do it. Long story short, I just could not help thinking to myself in that time that in the 2 business days I spent trying to migrate this website, and ultimately we had to go with a new host called Cloudways. In the 2 full days it took me trying to migrate that website, I could have done it in literally 5 seconds in Webflow by just transferring the website to my client's account. And at that point, there was really just no going back. I was all in on Webflow from that point on. Finally, finally, and this happened last year, while I was still mostly in Webflow, but still telling clients I could build sites in WordPress, what ended up happening was that I had to put together a proposal to a large architecture firm, and their site was currently on WordPress, and they were looking to stick with WordPress going forward, but they were also interested in what I was talking about with Webflow. So they asked me to provide 2 different proposals to them, which I did, but as I was looking over the cost of how much time it's going to take me, what's involved in the setup process for each project, what I ended up having to do is send a proposal for the WordPress site that was a couple $1,000s higher than the Webflow site. Reason being is that I knew it was going to take me much more longer to build in WordPress versus Webflow, and I also knew I had to include a solid amount of buffer time in case any of these technical issues came up that I was ultimately going to have to resolve. Also, I was just thinking to myself, I'm spending all this time putting together a proposal that's going to likely end up in a worse looking website that's going to take longer, but then also charge my clients more. I actually did not end up getting the project, which I'm happy about because they would have had me build it in WordPress, which I would not have wanted to do. But I just say that because ultimately that was really the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, because I'm just not comfortable as a professional charging my clients more money to deliver a inferior product that's going to take longer to ultimately deliver as well. All right, so a bit of a chatty video, but long story short, that is my evolution from learning how to build websites in WordPress and then ultimately transitioning over to Webflow. Now, this isn't to say that I'm a total Webflow stan and I don't think there's things that could be improved upon it. I'm not sponsored by Webflow, so everything I'm saying here is just my personal opinion. And quite frankly, in a few years from now, there might be better options on the market than Webflow. Honestly, this new tool called Framer, I am very interested in, although there are massive switching costs from going from one platform to the other, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on it because honestly, if anything, this looks like it could disrupt Webflow the way Webflow has disrupted WordPress, just in allowing designers, developers to deliver projects faster while also having better design value at the end of the day. So I am very platform agnostic when it comes down to it. I'm just looking for the best tool to develop websites in that are also going to be able to deliver a great client experience. All right, so whether you're a fellow developer or a marketing director or even a business owner, I hope you got some value out of that. If you did, so I would love if you liked the video, subscribe, and keep coming back to my channel so you can learn all about how to grow your brand online with digital marketing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.